Well, I bought the free boat. Now I might as well start fixing it. A few tools. Epoxy. The most obvious first thing is there were a few gouges on the armour that needed to be filled in. So I ground that back to definitely what was good wood and then built it back up with fiberglass. One of the appealing things about this particular boat is it was both large enough that I thought you could sleep in it, but small enough you could still manhandle it around and drag it up the beach quite easily. As you see, the armour is a one-man lift. The next problem was some delamination on the aft deck. Found a hole. That'll be how the rainwater got in. I also noticed the plywood under here is a little damp, which I think is what caused this to delaminate. I also noticed that the underside of the deck here doesn't seem to be sealed. This is me stretched out fully. Maybe you could have a 6 foot tall person sleeping in here. Inside of the main cabin, 294 centimetres. Definitely want to make a platform to sleep in, not just to make it smooth, but also because any water did get inside, you don't want your bed getting wet. The original outboard bracket was this piece of wood that went all the way through here, but later they cut that and then added this piece of metal, so now it goes through the hole and that's it. There was some rainwater inside. I started bailing, but then I realised there was a simpler but grosser way to get it out. This piece of wood on the aft deck had gone soft and easiest to just replace it. Why did someone feel like they needed to drill a hole here? Probably a fuel line for the outboard. It looked like the rudder cassette was going to need a total rebuild. I quite like the rudder design. A bungee holds the rudder into the cassette and then there's a tiller attached to the top. 2 stainless steel straps go around the stern post and then are bolted onto the cassette. The first step was disassembling the cassette so I could use it as a template for the new one. The sides were clearly ruined and turns out the core was a little bit soft. However, it would be useful as a template to make the holes in the right place. John reckons the rudder is made out of Outrigger from the dark colour. It is very heavy and hard. There were a few soft spots to grind out and fill in with epoxy. So the sail actually does fit pretty well. The master will need to be raked forward a little bit, and then the sail won't be on the boom. It's not as long as it's meant to be, but I think it'll sail well. I measured the mast and spars to see how accurately it followed the plan. 650 total length of the mast and the yard. The spinnaker has a spot for tying on a rope in the middle, which presumably must be for pulling it into some kind of tube or something, which would be a pretty nice way to get the spinnaker down on a boat like this. Okay, it's time for epoxy. It turned out that the sides of the hull weren't actually glassed. The deck was glassed and the seams where 2 sheets of plywood joins were glassed, but the bottom of the hull isn't actually glassed. So where I'm rebuilding the holes, I'm just replacing wood with fiberglass. This is both easier and probably much stronger compared to carefully shaping pieces of plywood and gluing them on. So that my deck patch would have a nice edge. Epoxy degrades in ultraviolet light and I don't know when I'm next going to make it back, so I'm going to paint primer over the new epoxy at least. Since I only needed a small amount, I used syringes to be able to measure it accurately. They might look at you funny if you go to the pharmacy and ask for a large syringe, but these I got from a $2 shop in a pack of 5 for maybe $3. If you clean them with acetone afterwards, you might be able to use them multiple times before they gunk up too much. I used masking tape and then cut off the extra fiberglass with a skill knife. That was enough boat work for now. The real purpose of this trip was visiting people. But it happened that the bay I was visiting was where the original builder lived. He showed me a plaque commemorating Mihi's construction in 2016. I was also surprised to see a magazine article about the launching ceremony. Also very interested to learn that the timber used to construct Mihi was actually driftwood, native New Zealand tawa that had been washed down the river in a winter storm. I brought the remnants of the rudder cassette with me so that I could begin construction of the new one from the various pieces of wood that I happened to have on board. I've been considering maybe not carrying so many power tools, so I tried ripping this piece by hand. It wasn't too hard, and I bet if I spent a few extra bucks on a really good handsaw, then it would be pretty easy. Switching to all hand tools would be one way to do a lightweight boat construction technique, but the difficult part would not be using lots of heavy metal clamps. It shouldn't really be too surprising that these homemade rudder straps are not exactly the same. So here's the parts that I've made. Haven't glued it together yet. I'm going to take it back to Mihi and see if it fits. I was planning to leave Great Barrier and sail back to New Zealand soon, but I thought it would be a good idea to return to Mihi and dry fit the new rudder to see if it fit correctly. I anchored in the nearest suitable bay and then emoted over in the proa. To the scene of crime. This primer is actually a little bit glossy, which is quite surprising. And it has sand, probably because I painted it on the beach. I had been away for about a week and there had been one day of heavy rain. That's a little bit of water. So a little bit of water here, but not down there. Suggests it's not condensation, it is in fact rain. Oh, there are limber holes there. Okay, so any water in the whole front bit will run down. And this one also has limber holes. Well, my guess is going to be the chain plates. The chain plates is the element that's on both sides. So I bailed out the water and I poured some of it on the deck to see if I could find the leak. And here we go. It's dripping off the chain plate. Fixing those leaks will mean removing the armours. Well, basically disassembling in the entire thing. I'll take the rig down as well. Don't think I'll do it on the ramp here. I'll pull it down to their relatively flat beach, which will need to be at low tide. Disassemble all of that stuff and then reseal it. The armour lashings need retightening anyway. Not to mention inspecting. Let's see if the new rudder cassette will fit. It's a good thing I came into this because even with a lot of grinding, it doesn't quite fit. So I've put it on without the inner bit and it actually fits. And it also shows that this, I think, is actually just too thick. That reckons it's like 30 mils and this is like more like 33.5. So thinking about it, I reckon that they made the rudder by making the cassette, making the stock, making the straps, clamping the straps round, then drilling through both everything. That's why they're crooked, and that's why they line up with the stock, because they were just drilled in one go. So I'm trying to make something that fits the crooked holes. Of course, that's going to be really difficult, but I'm pretty close. One way would just be to make the straps again, but I don't have bits of steel on me. So what I think I'll do is I'm going to plane this down so it fits together, and then I'll just put some layers of tape, and instead of drilling holes to fit, I'll basically pour some epoxy in with various bits to stop it sticking to things I don't want it to stick to, and I think that'll work. It's a little stiff, but I got it to fit together. Well, I'm not quite finished yet, but that's enough for now. By the way, I'm looking for a small jib if anyone has one to contribute to the project.